Good morning and welcome to today's show. Now, I do realize that I've been away for some time and I haven't posted any videos or have gone live for probably about 2 or 3 months. There has been a reason behind that. I was just really working on the business and taking care of family members that were ill and no, it wasn't the dreaded C word, but just really bad colds. So I just took some time off just to make sure that I could deal with that and not have to worry about anything else. And of course, working on other parts of the business. But I'm now back and I'm now hoping to make this a regular thing. And I will be going live on a Friday morning now. That'll be the only time I go live for the moment. But I'll also be posting other videos as well. And I've got a few new ideas and all that that have come during the period where I was off. It gave me some room to think about everything. So there'll be a lot more pre-recorded videos that will be appearing on the channel. So do watch out for those. And if you are looking to see what's going to be posted and you're not a member of the channel yet, then please look to subscribe. Just click on the subscribe button, click on the notification bell if you are on YouTube. And if you're on any of the other platforms like Facebook, then click on the like button and make sure that you follow the page for the notifications. So as you can see, there's a few things that have changed slightly. There's been a little bit of change in the branding. I just wanted to refresh that for my YouTube channel. And I will be going through and still updating a lot of things on there. So now on a Friday when I go live, I'm still using my normal setup which is vmix. But instead of using vmix as a software that goes out, I've decided I'm going to try out Restream. I've always used Restream anyway because I stream to multiple platforms when I go live, but it was always just kind of, you know, pointing it in the right direction. But I'm actually using Restream Studio today, coupled with vmix as well. So there's a few things that still go through vmix, but there's a few things on Restream, and I wanted to test it out a lot more so that I could also make sure that I can recommend this to my clients and show them how to use it and the different uses that it can be used for, because it can be used just to record videos as well, not just going live. So there's a lot of different features on there which can help in producing better videos. So again, subscribe to the channel, and you'll see a lot more of the content around that as well in the coming weeks and months. So today, I wanted to go through maintaining your WordPress website. And the reason for that is I maintain a lot of client websites, and I'm always onboarding new clients for the service because I think they've realized how important it is to maintain your website. And a lot of people still don't do this. They have their new website go live, and months later, they ask me to check on a few things, and nothing has been updated. WordPress, themes, plugins, all of that has not been updated, even though it has been stressed to them that they do need to keep this up to date. And the reason for that is you don't want to be another hacking statistic, because unfortunately, if you don't update your WordPress software, the plugins, themes, there can always be security breaches. These developers will go and make sure that any vulnerabilities that have been detected are patched. So you do need to make sure that that software has been updated. And for me, there are, excuse me, for me, there are kind of three main areas that you definitely need to maintain uh, in for your website. But I'm going to have two bonus tips as well. So make sure that you do watch to the end, as I will be going through two bonus tips as well. So let's get into this video. Hi, my name is Jason Kruger, and I help heart-centered businesses build and automate their online marketing systems. Now, in today's video, as I said, I want to go through a few points about maintaining your WordPress website. And I say WordPress because that is what I develop uh, all my websites on. I have always done that now for probably the last 10, 11 years. And it's my platform of choice. Yes, there are so many others out there, Wix, Squarespace, and they take care of all of that for you. But for me, you're just renting space there. You do not actually own the website per se, because you stop paying, your website goes offline. Whereas with WordPress, as long as you have your own hosting, you control every aspect of that website. So WordPress is a great platform, and it allows you to scale it and create new features that you might not have thought of when you first created your website. But it does need to be maintained. Otherwise, it can slow down. It could possibly get hacked, and things might just stop working on the site. So it is imperative that you do make sure that you maintain it. So the first point that I want to go through is backing up your website, because that is just kind of the first step in maintaining your website. And you might have think, well, how's backups maintaining the website? Well, because when you do the next two steps, you definitely want to make sure that you have a backup of your website, just in case that when one of the updates goes wrong, you never know, you can always go back to the backup to make sure that your site then comes back up and it's running properly. And then you can investigate why that plugin, that theme, whatever, caused an issue on your site while your site is still running. So making sure that you have a backup of your website is imperative. Now, how many times do you back up your site? When should you back up? How do you back up? Well, a lot of the hosting providers will back up your website for you, and a lot of them will do it as part of your package. But sometimes I find that those, it's a backup, it's great, but trying to find out where you need to go to restore it, and have they done it correctly, all of that, you know, sometimes it's best to have that in your own hands. Yes, a lot of the hosts will have really good backup systems. One of the hosting providers that I use is WP Engine, and they do a daily backup of my sites, and that's great. And I do make sure that that is running all the time. But I also have my own backup solutions running on the sites as well, just to make sure that I do have a backup. Now, how many times do you back up? Well, if you have a hosting provider that does back up your website for you, they will be doing that every day. So you will have a daily backup of your site. And how many times should you back up your site? Again, it depends on how many changes you've made to your website. Is your website business critical? Are you taking payments through it? Because if you are, then you do want to at least have a daily backup of that. Because if someone has just bought something and it's on a subscription and you haven't backed up the site that night, and the next day something goes wrong, and then you restore it from a backup from let's say a week ago, that subscription won't be there. So you'll miss those payments, and potentially they might not have access to their service or the product that they have purchased from you because of that. And if that is something that is very business critical, then maybe a daily backup is not enough. And you've got to do it every 6 hours, maybe every 2 hours. It all depends on how your site is running for your business. Now, with a lot of WordPress websites, again, there's a lot of different plugins that you can use to restore or back up your website. Two of the main ones that I've used in the past is Backup Buddy and Updraft, and they're just a plugin that um, gets installed on your site, and you can set up the schedule, etc. But one thing that you also need to make sure that you do is that you're not keeping the backup of your site on the same server or in the same area that your website resides. And the reason for that is if something goes wrong with your website, the backup could be compromised as well. So you could be saying, oh, yeah, no, I'm fine. I have a daily backup. But if something happens to the web server, for instance, your hosting provider, or if someone does hack your site and then destroys all the backups, then you're back to square one and you don't have a backup. So when you're using these plugins, they always give you the option to have an offsite backup. It could be to Dropbox, it could be to Google, to all of those types of different services. And I do urge you to make sure that they are set up so that they do go to an off-site location. Just in case something does happen, then you have that backup. If something happens to the hosting provider, you could always create an account with another hosting provider, have your backup ready, get it installed on that hosting provider, and then get it up and running quicker. So make sure that you do have the off-site backup. Now, the second point, and I'm actually going to amalgamate this. Actually, no, I'll amalgamate the point 2 and point 3 into new point 3, because point 2 is actually making sure that WordPress is updated. WordPress always comes out with newer versions, and sometimes it's to add new features. But a lot of the time it's there to make sure that any security holes have been patched. So you do need to make sure that you do have the ability to update WordPress, and you should be looking at that on a regular basis. Now, I'm not saying you need to do this every day, maybe once a week. Uh, make sure that you do have a WordPress updated, because they will make sure that any security holes have been patched. Now, in the past, I've had other uh, website designers, developers say, "Oh, they don't touch WordPress because it can get hacked so easily." Well, it gets hacked. Well, I'm not going to say it gets hacked easily. As long as you have a proper maintenance plan uh, in place, it does make it harder. Now, I'm not going to say that WordPress sites don't get hacked and they're not hackable. Of course they are. Depends on how hard you make it for them as well. And that's why you need to have this maintenance plan. But to those people that say, well, I don't want to use WordPress because it can get hacked. Well, the same could be said about Windows. Do you use Windows on your PC? Well, that can get hacked all the time. And the reason for that is because it is so widely used. You know, loads and loads of people use Windows machines. Loads and loads of people now use WordPress. The last time I think a statistic was 30-40% of all websites now on the internet are WordPress based, because it is so versatile. You're seeing big brands now start to use WordPress as well for some of their websites. So it's not that um, it's a bad software. It's just how you maintain it and make sure that you do have backups and you're regularly updating your plugins and your other software to make sure that you're making it as hard as possible for your site to get hacked. So you do need to make sure that you are updating WordPress on a regular basis. But that's also why I go back to point one, is you do need to make sure that you have backups, and that if you are updating WordPress, you are taking a backup before you're doing that, just in case something goes wrong. Now, point three is making sure that you are also updating your theme and the various plugins that you might have on your site. Because again, they will get updated for security patches or new features. So you do need to make sure that you are making the effort to get these updated as well. Because, one thing that doesn't get updated is always going to potentially create a hole where people can get in and cause havoc on the site. So do make sure that you're updating it. Now, I'm not just saying you need to update it just because of the uh, potential of people hacking your site. Far from it. The other reason that you want to make sure that you're updating everything is because, like everything, technology moves on. You are going to have themes and plugins from even 5 years ago that might not work if and could even be 2 years ago, that might not work now because other uh, software or programming languages have been updated. And that is something that I see on a regular basis. Is some plugins now stop uh, using previous versions of PHP, for instance. PHP is a programming language that WordPress uses. Now, that has been on a pretty fast development schedule now compared to how it used to be. And plugins from a few years ago can stop working or start creating errors on your website. And then that causes other issues like speed and features not working. So that's another reason why you need to make sure that all the software on your website is updated on a regular basis. Now, those are my kind of three main tips that you need to perform on your website to make sure that you're keeping it running, you are maintaining it. Those are the three main ones. And as I said, I do have some bonus tips as well. And the first bonus tip that I can give you is to use a reputable source for your WordPress themes, plugins, because there are so many developers out there, and like with anything, they are going to be your great developers and they're going to be your poor developers. And you need to make sure that when you are buying your plugins, that those developers are going to stick around for a long time. You don't want to buy a plugin that was last updated 2 years ago, because that might stop working. You might buy a plugin now, and in 2 years' time, they disappear, and you still got your website, and all of a sudden things start breaking, and they're not updating it, and then you're kind of stuck, and you have to start looking for other plugins to replace it. So you need to make sure that you are using reputable developers, because they are the ones that are going to maintain their product. They are the ones that are going to add new features to it, make sure that it is working with the latest technology. Developers that might only create a plugin because it solves their own issue might after a while stop using it themselves, so they stop updating. And you can find about these on, if you Google it, looking at the plugins that you are looking at. Look at what current versions they have, because if it's a high number, it means that they've been around for a long time, and the plugin has been developed over the years. And if that's the case, a lot of times, it's going to be maintained into the future as well. And it is just to make sure that you are buying it from people that are going to be updating it, because if they're not, then that could cause an issue. Now, a lot of people say, well, I bought this plugin, but there's a yearly update on it. You know, yes, that's because someone has to get paid to make sure that that plugin is supported, and that's how they do it. So yes, there might be a yearly license on those plugins, but it's going to be well worth it if your website is going to stick around for years and you're going to use those features, because it does mean that it's going to be maintained. Now, there are plenty of free plugins out there as well that are still maintained, and that's because those free plugins might have a paid bigger brother of that version of that plugin. There might be a pro version of that plugin, and so that's how they maintain it as well. So have a look into that when you're looking at the different plugins that you might want on your website. If there is a free version, do they have a paid version of it? Because one, that will unlock further features, but it also shows you that they will keep maintaining the free version as well. So do have a look at that when you're looking at plugins, themes, etc., for your website. And the next bonus tip is to use a great hosting provider, because a lot of times they will have their own technologies to keep hackers out. They might have managed services as well, so they will keep certain aspects of your website updated, like WordPress. And so look into the hosting providers that you're using, and cheapest is not always the best. It might be cheap when you're starting out, but if your website is going to be slow when it's on their service, then is it a great price to pay? So have a look at that. Look at reviews. If you've got contacts in the industry of web designing, or you're speaking to your web developer, or whoever, ask them who they may recommend, because they will know of the best hosting providers, because they're probably using it themselves, and they know the systems, and they know that they're going to be good hosting providers. I've used plenty over the years and tested them, and I can tell you which ones that I would use and which ones I wouldn't, because of personal experience. So you do need to make sure that you're using a great hosting provider, because a lot of times they will have great support as well. So if you do have an issue on your site, you then can use their support to help if you've got any issues, because sometimes the issue might be down to uh, their servers that they can fix and make sure that everything is running perfectly for you. So I hope you've enjoyed the content of uh, this first live for a while. And if you do and you're on YouTube, then please look to subscribe to the channel and click on the notification bell so that you next get notified when I go live or when I next post a video. Now, I wanted to structure these videos a little bit differently, where I have the content up the front and give you some great information, but then also to have a bit of a Q&A session at the end. And I've already got some questions that I've found around hosting or maintaining your website that I know that a lot of people are going to ask, and I didn't want to put it just in the bulk of the content, because some of this is people just want to have their question answered, um, and I'm hoping that this section will do that as well. And if you do have any questions, leave them down below in the comments area, and I will make sure that I answer them for you. But I also have a new community that I'm in the process of building. I did kind of launch it last year. Haven't really done much with it just yet, but again, I've got a lot of ideas now, and I'm just going to start getting that implemented. And if you've looked at my YouTube channel before, you'll notice that I have built the community uh, website community area on circle.so, and they now have added a lot of new features to it, and one of them is a live streaming in there as well, which I'm a beta tester, and I want to start using that as well. So I will be going live exclusively in there as well to answer questions and other exclusive content. And if that is something that does interest you, then please go to jasonkruger.com/community, and you can go there and sign up to the community site, and start posting any questions you have in there, content ideas, etc. And I will make sure that I respond to it. And like I said, there will be some other exclusive content coming your way in there as well. So the first kind of question that's always asked is, how can you secure your WordPress website against hackers? Now, there are many different ways to secure it. As I've said in previously, one of the first things you can do is to sign up to a great hosting provider, because a lot of time they will have a managed service where they will help to maintain your website for you. A lot of times they will update WordPress automatically for you and test it to make sure that nothing has gone wrong. Keeping all your plugins, themes, WordPress up to date is another way to secure your site, because if those are constantly being updated, any security holes that previously might have appeared will have been patched, so that will secure your site. But other things, which is kind of common sense, but a lot of people still don't do it, unfortunately, is to use strong passwords for your websites. Don't just make it a short password. Make sure that you are using these strong passwords. Yes, I know it can be a pain sometimes to try and remember them, but you can use services like LastPass, which will store the passwords for you. But using strong passwords is a great way to secure your site as well. And lastly, there are other plugins out there that can help with security. One thing I will say is that you just got to be careful with some of them, because the wrong settings and all that, and you could either be locked out of your site, or other plugins might stop working, because what are these security plugins will do is that they will check the kind of the code that is being run, and if it doesn't like something, it will block it, so it could actually stop features working on your site. But plugins that kind of do this is, there's a plugin via iThemes that will do it. There's WordFence. There's also the Security plugin, which also does a lot of the security, and they also have service to check for malware on your site. So that's kind of one the different ways that you can secure your site. And the next question number 2, would be, how can I safely update my WordPress site? as I've said in the main content, is the updates are crucial. Excuse me. Updating your website and making sure that you've got WordPress and all of that is a crucial part of your site. But how can you safely update it without causing other issues? And that is going to be the case of backing up your site. Make sure that when you are going to um, update WordPress, the theme, or any plugins, that you have a backup of your website just before you do it, just to make sure that if something does go wrong, you have that backup and you can restore it from that backup. And also make sure that you know how to restore the backup, just in case you need to do it, because it's all very well having the backup, but knowing what to do with it afterwards is also another crucial element of that. So do make sure that you know that before updating your website. Question number 3, what should I consider before changing my WordPress theme? Now, this does fall under maintaining your website, because you might want to just kind of update it a little bit. Maybe there's some new features on a new theme. Now, there are a lot of issues that I found when changing a theme of a website. A lot of people think it's just easy, just change a theme and you know everything will look like the demo site. And unfortunately, it's not, because a lot of these themes will store different areas and different sections of the database, for instance, but also they have different ways of working and different ways of how they've created the layout. So a lot of the times, just changing the theme over is actually going to cause a lot more issues than it's going to solve. So my advice, if you're looking to change your theme, is to take a backup of your site, and if you can, restore it on another domain or a test domain that you can play around with, and then install the theme on that and see what you need to do to make sure that your website doesn't look a mess and everything works on it. So don't just go and change the theme, because that is definitely going to cause a lot of issues. Because sometimes a lot of these websites will come bundled with page builders, for instance, and different page builders again have different ways of working. And if your new theme uses a different page builder to the old theme, your whole site is going to be a mess, and you're probably going to end up having to start from scratch. So just changing the theme is not as easy as it may sound. There's a lot of things that you need to investigate before doing it. Question number 4. How do I switch hosting providers without any issues or too much downtime? Now, this is a great question, because I'm actually doing that for a couple of clients at the moment. And it can be easy, but there are things that you do need to make sure that you are planning for, so that it does reduce the downtime. And why would you want to move host? Well, a lot of the times it could be that there's technical issues on the other host and they're not fixing it, and your website's always crashing or it's too slow. Um, Again, value for money. Are you getting different features on a different host that you want and they'll be able to help you with? And a lot of time it's just the support. If you're with a hosting provider and they're not really helping you with getting any issues resolved, especially if it's server issues, then I think it's time that you do move, because if they're not going to help you with that, um, it's not a great hosting provider. And a lot of times it's going to be reliability, speed, and security, because different hosts will offer different packages for security. They might even bundle it in. So those are a lot of reasons why you might want to move. Now, the way to move it, again, it's going to be to take a backup of your site, go to the new hosting provider, make sure that you've set up the environment. So making sure that the domain is kind of set up on that hosting provider, restore your site on their servers. A lot of times they will have a service where they'll do all of this for you. So they'll take a backup of your old site, put it on their hosting servers, make sure it's working. So they'll a lot of times they'll have a test URL which they can see if the site is working correctly. And then lastly, it's going to be changing some DNS settings. So the settings that are pointing your domain name to the old server, they need to be changed so they point to the new server. And a lot of the times, this can be done quite seamlessly, and people won't really see any downtime. Only times is if there's something that's been overlooked and they need to kind of make some adjustments on the fly. But in my own experience, that rarely happens as long as you've planned it out correctly. Question number 5, what's the best way to perform a backup on my site? Now, I have covered that in the main content, and that's looking at different solutions. Your hosting provider will have ways of backing up the sites as part of their package, but a lot of times I would like to take that into my own hands as well, just because websites can be an important part of your business, and there are plugins like Backup Buddy, Updraft. There are other services out there like Manage WP, which is something that I use, but that's because I have a lot of sites that I want to maintain, and I have my own dashboard, and I can see all the sites, etc., in there. So making sure that you are using a good backup plugin will definitely help with that, and set it up on a schedule so that you're not having to go in there and manually having to do that, and also to make sure that it's going to be backed up off-site is a must. You need to make sure that that is being done, as well as making sure that you know how to restore that backup afterwards, because if you don't, and the site does go down, you might have the backup, but it's kind of useless if you don't know how to restore it. Now, question number 6 is a great one, because I see it on a lot of sites, and that's how can I regulate spam on my WordPress website? And yes, spam can be a big issue, um, because a lot of sites can get hit with a lot of spam very, very quickly. And it's not just comments on blog posts, it could even be spam coming through any opt-in boxes or opt-in forms that you may have. Now, if it's coming up on your blog posts, a lot of times you have to, depending on how you've set it up, you have to approve them. And that might just be an annoying job, but you're like, well, I just need to just delete them. So you don't really do much about it. But if they start appearing on your blog posts, that can cause an issue, because it's not going to give a great impression to any people that are visiting your website, looking at your blog post and then seeing a lot of spam comments on there, especially if they're going to bad websites. For instance, there might be links on there, and they're trying to use your website to link back to theirs, etc. So you want to make sure that those don't appear on there. And like I said, there might be some outbound links on there, and which is probably not going to help you with your own SEO either. So you do want to make sure that those are deleted. Now, if you don't want people to comment on your blog post, you can just turn commenting off, and that will just solve that issue. But if commenting is something that you do want people to be able to do on your blog posts, then there are different services that you can use. Now, the one that's normally bundled with WordPress when you install it is Akisme. You can sign up to their service, and that will deal with spam. Uh, and there are plenty others out there as well that you can use to stop the spam. Now, the last question that I will be covering this morning is, what are the most crucial maintenance tasks that you should perform? Now, as I've said previously, there are the 3 main ones that I say that you always have to do. And they are, to me, they're going to be the most important. If those are going to do sorry, if those are going to be the only tasks that you perform. And that's going to be backing up your website, making sure that WordPress is always kept up to date, and that your theme and plugins are kept up to date. Now, if those are going to be the only tasks that you perform, that is going to be a great start, and they are quite crucial. So if you do those, at least you will be in a much better position. Now, other things that you can do as well is security monitoring, comment checking, so checking, if you've got spam comments, etc. Speed test. Do some testing to see if there's issues with your site speed-wise, because if people are coming to your site and it's slow, they're going to be turned off and then it's going to go find someone else. And if you Google website speed checking and all that, there'll be a list of different websites you can use to check the speed of your site, and normally they'll tell you what is causing an issue, and then you can look into how you can solve those. Uh, Another one that a lot of people miss and they don't actually have installed is the Google Search Console, because that will show you other errors on your site, or there pages that are missing, etc., links not working. You want to make sure that that has been looked at. And then just checking for broken links. If people are coming to your site and they're clicking on a link and it's not going anywhere, or it's taking them to a 404 page, which is a page that just says, sorry, can't find that. Again, not going to be a great impression. So you do want to make sure that you are checking those on a regular basis, especially if you've got a lot of blog posts on there and you've added to things over the years, and you just want to make sure that all those links are working. So those are kind of going to be the other kind of tasks that you can perform when maintaining your website. And again, I hope that I've answered these are the common questions that I see come up a lot of times. And if you do, then please look to subscribe to the channel and click on the notification bell so that you get notified when I next go live or when I next post a video. And if you've got other further questions that you want answering, and you can either leave them in the comments down below, or if you want answers on other things, online marketing tech, it doesn't just have to be your website. It could be landing pages, how to put them on your website, membership site, all those types of questions that you might have in your business that you're struggling with. Then why not join the community where you can ask those questions, and I can make sure that they get answered for you, and it might spark some other content ideas as well, and I can create other videos on that. And if that is something that does interest you, then please go to jasonkruger.com/community and join that and ask your questions in there, and I will make sure that it gets answered for you. So I hope you've enjoyed today's show, and I will see you next week at 10 a.m. on Friday. Have a great weekend.